Jeanette, thanks for coming today. What would you like to talk about?
Excuse me, I've been really
okay.
sick. So, I'm here to talk about, I'm having some mixed feelings. I have a cousin who just got out of prison.
Oh.
Yeah, and he's coming back to my hometown and will probably be at family functions.
Ooh.
I have a family that's very much family comes first. We support family, all of this, but the family's all struggling. I have a very large family.
Mm-hmm.
This particular cousin, we have a total of 18 aunts and uncles.
Mm-hmm.
My father there's 9 in his
Mhm.
family, and they're all married, and they all have anywhere from 2 to 4 kids.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is a cousin who, he's older than I am, but he went to prison for sodomizing
Oh.
a kid, yeah, and had sexually abused his own kids, so he's not allowed around them. And his family just wants, it's like he served his time, they just want him accepted back into the family,
Mm-hmm.
and they're causing a lot of dysfunction with that, and a lot of strife. And there's some family members that feel like, yes, you know, he needs to be accepted back into the family, and then there's a bunch of family members that are saying,
Scared.
yeah,
Mhm.
well, it is
Yeah.
kind of scary, you know, he's had these behaviors his whole life. And as cousins, there was a lot of abuse that occurred within our cousins that came up, you know, as all of this came out. And I just feel like a lot of us are not ready.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We're not ready, and we might not ever be ready. And I'm looking at how's that gonna affect family reunions and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that drama's kind of come up with family here recently, and
That's difficult.
it
That's
is
a challenge.
It is, because a cousin I was really close to was molested by him, and I tend to side with him
Mm-hmm.
as to what happened. And so I'm feeling like I really just don't want to go do the big holiday dinners,
Mm-hmm.
because if he's present, I'm just not going to be comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
But it's going to be obvious if I'm not at the holiday dinners,
Mhm.
you know, it's going to be tough.
Yeah.
So
You have a lot of frustration for this person because you're close to your cousin. There are things that happen that you're not comfortable with.
I'm not. And, you know, it's made me think, you know, about our biases and stuff when we're working with people.
Tell me more.
Well, I think about, okay, what if this is a person coming out of prison that had all these things and is wanting to come back into the family, and as a counselor,
Mm-hmm.
you know, how is that going to affect me
Mm-hmm.
when I've had this firsthand and I'm seeing how emotionally
Mm-hmm.
it is affecting me?
You've been in school and been learning about biases, and now you're kind of thinking, bringing that into your life,
Yeah.
and how does that affect your relationships?
Yeah,
Mhm.
and trying to, so I find myself sometimes, and I get frustrated by this, but sometimes I feel like I think of everybody, including family, from a counselor standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's other times I'm thinking from that family piece, like I have a right to feel this way. Just because I'm going through counseling doesn't mean
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a right to have these feelings. These are very real feelings for me.
Yeah.
But I do think about, what if that person walks through my door and needs help?
Yeah.
What's that going to look like? And a part of me is like, well, I would say, because he's not family, sure, I'll talk to him and work with him, and, you know, have these conversations and be okay.
Mm-hmm. You're questioning if it would be different because he's not your family when you're working with him,
Yeah.
but it's playing out in your life in the family role, so it's a challenge. Mm-hmm.
So, but then I'm like, well, if I can do that, then why is it that I can't with family?
Mm-hmm.
You know, what is that difference?
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been kind of, you know, really reflecting on biases a lot. Emotional regulation's been another one that I've been struggling with, just because I've been so sick for so long.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm finding that my sleep's not good.
Mm-hmm.
And when you feel sick all the time,
Mm-hmm.
it's really hard for things that would probably be small not to be huge.
Mm-hmm. You feel angry.
Yeah, I'm
Yes.
angry and frustrated, and I feel like I'm doing everything I can to get well, and it's not happening,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know what to do.
And sad.
I'm very sad because I feel like I'm missing out on very important things in class just even though I'm present, my brain is just not working the way I need it to facilitate what I'm hearing.
Tell me more.
Well, I have a lot of days by the time I get to class, I feel like even though I'm not running a fever, my thinking and everything feels very similar to when you are running a fever. My eyes hurt, my head's pounding, you know, and there's such a demand to be professional when I just want to lay my head down on the desk and sleep. And I know everybody says, well, you got to take care of you, but I don't think one day of sleeping is going to do it. I've had
and
that.
by the time you get to class, you're exhausted. You've had a whole day, and
I'm very exhausted.
you want to take a nap.
I do, and I struggle because like some of the kids, that's all they do is classes, and it's like I'm doing about 45 hours a week with kids, which is very draining. You know, and they talk about draining if you're just counseling children, and that's what I'm doing all week long, and then coming to classes and talking about it, and I just feel, and then reading about it, and then your homework's about it, and I just feel like there's no break. So talk about burnout.
Tired and exhausted and overwhelmed, I bet. Yeah.
I do. And then I struggle with how I'm changing through this. In some ways I'm excited.
Yeah, tell me more.
I feel really sometimes like I'm understanding things for the first time. I've been in counseling for a lot of years, dealing with a lot of trauma from my past, but for the first time in studying counseling and all the different theories and hearing things from so many directions, I feel like I'm getting a lot of ahas at such an accelerated pace.
That makes you happy.
It makes me, I get excited and motivated by it, but also afraid.
It scares you.
Because sometimes you come to realize things you didn't know and you didn't think were a part of yourself. And sometimes those things are like some of those biases or prejudices. You didn't see yourself as that person, but you have to step back and say, oh, I do have pieces of this in me. You
School
know,
is kind of showing you parts of yourself that maybe aren't your favorite parts.
right?
Or, yeah.
And to have to reflect on that, and also, you know, to balance things in life. And they keep doing a lot on self-care, which is also very, very hard for me.
Tell me more.
Well, I really struggle with the ability to make the time. I know they say, well, it can be as little as a cup of tea. For me, as an introvert, especially working in areas where they're constantly pulling on you emotionally and mentally, I can have the cup of tea, but I need something more. I need bigger, I need more downtime, more rest. I would love to just focus on family and friends and things that would be healthy, like exercising. But currently I feel like I'm just, you know, hanging on a cliff by the edges of my fingertips.
You're scared and you have so much going on.
I do, and it's like, how do I make one more thing work when I don't have time for what I'm trying to get done?
It's like if you add this little small thing, like a cup of tea, it's just kind of it just takes more time. And
Yeah, it
just kinda
takes more
stresses
time,
you
and I
out.
don't feel that it's helping quite like they said it would.
Right.
Because I'm not getting the downtime at home, the quiet time. I'm still immersed in the counseling from the moment I get home in order to keep up in the reading. Yeah, and the writing of papers, and so it's like you're required to think about it literally all the time, except for when you're asleep, and then if you're unlucky, like sometimes I am, you're dreaming about it, right? And you're waking up going, wow, no break. Yeah.
So everything in your life is just kind of a lot.
It is a
School is
lot.
overwhelming. You have this uncle coming out of prison.
Yeah, and not feeling safe, and
Yeah.
where I look forward to family functions and things.
Yeah.
I'm really,
Now you're
concerned about.
questioning that and you're scared.
Yeah. Well, because, and angry, like you were saying a minute ago, because I feel like something's being taken from me. That, you know, going and hanging out with family at big holiday dinners is a safe place where we can laugh and play games and stuff. And even if I could be okay, there's just tension when he's there from
Mhm.
other family members.
Mhm.
And it seems to start arguments, with those that are trying to be helpful and help him integrate back into family.
Mhm.
Um,
So even if it's not necessarily bothering you, it kind of creates a weird
weird feel.
ripple in
Yeah,
the
all the way
environment.
through.
Yeah.
Well, because and I have some compassion for him, don't get me wrong.
Mhm.
It would be hard
Mhm.
to know that the family knows what you've done
Mhm.
and to get out of prison. And I know he was on suicide watch, he had to be in isolation a lot, and he did his time.
Mhm.
And we're older people, but it's just, that is a hard crime.
Mhm. And that's a hard thing for you to accept. And you have this cousin that you're close to that was part of.
Yeah, it's
Part
just
of that.
really hard, yeah.
That is hard.
And,
Makes you sad.
yeah, and it's
And
just.
mad.
Yeah,
And
I-
afraid.
all of them,
all of
it's
those.
all of them.
Yeah.
And, the only thing I can say is I feel glad.
Right?
Yeah. So,
It sounds like school has really kind of helped you to look at things in a more in-depth way.
it has.
Mm-hmm.
It has, and I can say, sometimes there was a nice thing about just being mad, good and angry. I wish sometimes I could just have a feeling without questioning, I'm having the feeling of, and just feel it, and I understand that it can be unhealthy, but there's something pure in just feeling angry or upset, where you just get to have the experience, and now I feel almost so hyper control, I wear myself out questioning everything.
Yeah.
But I think in the whole, at the end of this process, I think I'll be a better person for it, with more depth and patience and insight. But the journey has been tough of getting there. It's been really tough, and how you take and bring that back to your family situations, right? Where they all know you as a certain person, and it's like, well, I don't wanna come in and be their counselor, right? But at the same time, you can't, if this stuff becomes a part of who you are and how you're processing, it's just, I know I'm different when I'm with family, and they've noticed it.
Yeah.
They're like, you're very quiet anymore, and you're very observant, and you listen, and you seem to really reflect before you say things, where before you were just like cut loose funny, would be obnoxious and say stuff, and now I'm really realizing there's a lot of weight with words. And
So school has really changed how your family sees you.
it
And
has,
how- yeah.
it has. And for me, there's just, I feel a huge responsibility that goes beyond class and work.
Tell me more.
Well, just like I was saying, there's a weight to our words that I never realized. I could be flip, I could be snarky, I could do whatever. And just kind of move on and feel I had a righteous reason for saying what I said, right? I have a right to my opinion. Now, I feel like I have a right to my opinion, but I don't know that I have a right to speak it and cause harm to somebody else. And just be flip, or pop off with something. I feel myself slowing down in responses in my thinking, and looking for ways to express understanding and to really listen, and not just to go off wondering if I'm doing things right or not.
You really have taken school into your heart and into your personality, and have embodied that kind of personality in your relationships.
Yes, yes. So, it is an integration, right? It does feel like that. It's not that I'm just adding, it's literally, I feel like, you think of tendrils going into the deeper pieces of you, of this. And in some ways it's been kind of fascinating, because I feel like sometimes going through this whole counseling process, there's pieces of me I've lost that it's kind of grabbing and pulling back to the surface and reintroducing my, me too. Where I know there's parts of myself I have suppressed in order to get through life and feel safe. But maybe it wasn't a bad part, maybe it shouldn't have been suppressed. But at that time I felt it was bad, because maybe I felt that part of me might have been too much or bubbly or too happy or, you know, too spontaneous, and it just always got me in trouble. So that person, that part of my persona just got locked away.
Pushed down.
Yeah, and I'm realizing that there's pieces of me I want to pull back out and get familiar with again.
And that makes you happy.
That does make me happy, because I've often felt like life has stolen so much from me and time, but I also feel like this is a time for reconciliation with myself.
Tell me more.
Well, coming from a life of a lot of trauma, and a lot of things that have happened, like I said, there's a lot of parts of myself that were not, I'm realizing they weren't bad. They were, the other people could not maybe adjust because of their situation to kids making noise, or not minding, or having too many ideas, or me talking too much, whatever. And so it became something that would bring out anger in the adults. And so I suppressed that part of myself, and then I married a man who's on the spectrum. And so spontaneity is hard for him, emotions are hard for him. And I'm not saying to be dysregulated, but I got to the point I didn't allow myself to feel or to be spontaneous. And in a lot of ways, even when everybody's having fun, I quietly observe fun, but I don't engage in fun.
So you kind of stifle yourself to make sure that everybody else is comfortable. Okay.
Very much so. And so I'm trying to kind of figure this out. Like, now I feel more awareness to even be more careful about what I say and do. But I also have a part of me that wants to reconnect with that person that sometimes just let go and had a good time. And I'm trying to figure out how to bring these two together and not have those two be in conflict, but maybe work together and kind of create a better whole. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So there's a part of you that's really growing so much in school, and you're learning that you can take this kind of rambunctious, fun piece of you back out.
Yeah.
And you want them to integrate and to feel comfortable.
Yeah.
In the world.
Yes, I want to be able to feel comfortable with others, not like I'm set aside just observing. I want to be able to carry forth that responsibility of, our words do have weight. And not necessarily have fun with reckless abandon, but totally submerge myself in the moment where, you can laugh so hard you cry. Or you run so hard you're out of breath, you almost have to fall down. Where you fully engage in the moment and have the full experience of that moment, where before I like you said, I stifled it and withdrew, observed more and more, and I feel like that's that piece of feeling young that I'm missing, and I want to reconnect with that.
And these things that you're telling me make me think of the self-care piece that you said you were missing also, that running, that laughing, those things are missing from your life too, that are part of that you
That's
stifled.
true. That's might be why it's so hard for me to engage in that, as I've had this amount of intense suppression, Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. That's really a good point, because it does mean I have to release a piece of me that can engage in this world differently in order to separate from school and work and this whole professional thing, that you're trying to do. So I can.
And that part of you is kind of what gives you some relaxation and some relief and joy.
I think,
It makes you feel happy.
Yes. Yeah. So I think, that's very true. And, I think of the whole balance piece, and I know we still have a lot of classes to go. This process is not over. This process never ends. I mean, that's where they talk about, your competence and everything is you've got to continue to be striving in this process and searching and achieving and stuff. But I hadn't really, that's a new thought for me, and I'm going to have to probably sit with that for a bit on that whole, where the wellness has been so hard, but I've also stifled this side of me that is kind of impulsive and playful and grabs the moment and lives in the moment. And if
brings you joy and happiness.
with joy and happiness, because that is it does bring you makes you glad, you know, it brings in that emotion and that motivation and stuff when you can
Mm-hmm.
reach into that part of yourself for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that again would even blend back in, you know, with all the family issues and
Mm-hmm.
not just this specific one. I mean, there's a
Mhm.
lot that come up, but
Mm-hmm.
always trying to find that balance of how to engage
Mm-hmm.
and I think if I could submerge more in the joy, it would be easier to face and to be within the space that's darker,
Mm-hmm.
for sure.
Because right now you're scared of that, and if you can take what you've learned in school and kind of use it as a
Mhm.
guide, and it's bringing you to that point, right?
Yeah.
Where you're feeling like maybe you're a little bit more safe to look at those areas.
That's true, yeah, very safe to look at some of those
Mhm.
areas, it has helped.
Mm-hmm.
Where you're willing even, you know,
Mhm.
just like the whole bias thing, I remember when we first had our class on multicultural, I mean, you're angry for part of that class,
Mhm.
right? And then you start to realize that you can have biases and be a good person, but have these things and that we all do,
Mm-hmm.
and it's that realization, I think, that helps a lot,
Mm-hmm.
that you don't have to be perfect,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and just be present and be willing and be open
Yeah.
to change and to really, I think I'm really starting to re-identify what my values are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And to be okay with them maybe being different types of values maybe
Mhm.
now than what they were when I was younger.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. And that's a really peaceful thought, to be, you know, to be okay with being both and to be okay with still discovering
yes, yeah,
and with school going on.
yes,
That probably brings you some comfort knowing that. Yeah.
yeah,
So we've talked about a lot of things today, Danette. We've talked about your family member that's coming home from prison, and that's a big thing for you. You know, deciding how to approach that, and how you know, and you're thinking a lot about your biases and how you
Mhm.
feel. And school has just really brought out a lot in you, and your family has noticed, you know, how your personality is changing, and you know, you are really coming to a place where you're kind of ready to allow yourself
Mhm.
to be who you want to be, right? And be free and boisterous and fun, and you're starting to kind of look at letting that part of you out again.
Mhm.
And I think that makes you happy and brings you some joy. And we're at the end of our session for today, but next week I'd like to talk more about how, you know, you can kind of celebrate looking into that, and you know, just talk about how you can, you know, like you said, continue learning and continue just kind of accepting that there's two sides, and that it's okay to kind of have a little bit of both. Does that make sense to you?
Oh yeah,
Does that sound like that's kind of what we were talking about today?
absolutely.
Yeah, it sounds
absolutely.
like you're really experiencing a lot of growth and just enjoying school.
Mhm.
And yeah, so I'd love to talk to you next week. You can come in same time, same place. Does that sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Sounds great.
Okay, thank
Thank
you
you.
so much for coming in today.
Thank you.
And have a great day.
All right.
Okay,
You
thanks.
too.